Hey everyone, it's Sean here at Proof's Pets. It's Thursday, so it's time for an animal facts video. And I have some really special guests today, which is going to be really cool. Here at the store, we're always trying to work with local breeders and distributors. We try to get things that are bred locally, done kind of low-key. We don't like going through like big names or anything like that. That way we can kind of ensure the health of our animals, know where they're coming from, and have like some liability because of that. We're always trying to get the best possible animals out to both our customers and to us and make sure they're healthy. So because of that, we get in tons of tarantulas, and we started working with a bunch of new tarantula people because one of our employees, Gage, happens to be the most knowledgeable tarantula person I've ever dealt with in my life. The kid knows more about tarantulas than I ever could. It's amazing the amount of info that comes in. So we recently got a donation of some tarantulas from somebody who couldn't take care of theirs anymore. We're now up to 91 tarantulas, which is the most we've pretty much ever had. So it's really, really cool. And so we have one of my favorite tarantulas called a skeleton tarantula, and then we have one that we haven't identified yet that kind of looks like a skeleton tarantula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Gage. He's going to tell us some facts about each tarantula, and we're going to determine what this other species is by comparing it to the skeleton tarantula that we have on hand. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gage, and he's going to give us some more information on what we got here.
Hi everybody, I'm Gage here. And this today is the Ephibopus marinus, which is the skeleton tarantula. These guys are a really cool species, and unlike a lot of other tarantulas that have the urticating hairs on their abdomens, which are the hairs that they kick off to make you itch as a defense mechanism, these ones actually have it on their pedipalps, which are these two adapted forelimbs that are smaller right here. It's kind of hard to see in that lighting and angle, but you can kind of see the leg protrude out. They're at the tip there, and they act as the same way, but they more or less rub them off or kind of flick them off in a way. These guys are a really interesting species, although they're not very handleable to begin with, just because they're a bit more defensive and, for their temperament. They're more prone to go up into a threat posture, as I've discussed in other videos with Sean here. They're a beautiful species to actually have showcased when they're out. A lot of times they really like to stay inside their burrows or hovels, just as a way to feel comfortable.
And where do we find this species at?
It's been a while since I researched that. I want to say it's South America, close to Brazil. I'm going to have to look that up again.
I actually caught him on something. Normally he knows everything.
No, so many, a lot of the tarantulas we see in the hobby for the New Worlds are from South America and Brazil. There's been recently some stuff coming out of Brazil that is questionable for its legality, especially since they've been cracking down on saying, no, you can't export any more tarantulas. So a lot of the ones that are very popular within the hobby are from Brazil and other tropical areas around South America.
And for what it's worth, from what I remember, that is the area they're from, because I used to own one too. Gage literally knows almost every bit of information on hundreds of species, so I just had to laugh at you because normally I don't catch him off guard with something. Normally he's like right on it. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Well, we have a tarantula that came in that was donated to us, but we weren't told what species it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this one and see if we can figure it out by the markings. Now, it's kind of hard to see in there.
I have some tongs here I can help coax them out with.
So what we were able to see earlier is that it does have like the striated type patterning on its legs, so we thought this might possibly be a skeleton tarantula, and a pretty big one to boot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look, and it does have similar markings. Is that a skeleton tarantula, Gage?
It is not. This is actually the Phonopalma semani, or the Costa Rican zebra or stripe leg.
So how can you tell the difference? Because like literally I look at that tarantula and I look at that one, and the patterning is almost exactly the same, along with the colorization. So what are we looking at here that's making this one different?
So a few different things. So this carapace on the skeleton tarantula is a lot more light and tan coloration. It's a completely different color, whereas this one is darker and more blacked over. Right now she's dulled down in color, which I'm guessing she's going to be going into a pre-molt here soon, just because of her coloration. Usually this would be a bit more vibrant, but she's losing any hair on her abdomen, which would be another sign she's going into a pre-molt.
So something that's kind of sticking out that I'm seeing right now for the first time is the spinnerets on this one aren't the same color as the abdomen. They look kind of like a bright orange.
And that's true. That's another dead signature that this is not a skeleton tarantula. because of those spinnerets and the underside. With the Costa Rican zebra, their undersides are kind of an oranges tangerine tan coloration, as well as their spinnerets on the outside. And their spinnerets are used to actually lay down web and make their homes. It's a really interesting part of their anatomy that's fairly flexible and really fun to watch when they're on you and laying web, because tarantulas will indeed lay web when they're on you.
Now, what's the kind of disposition that we might find on this species of tarantula?
For the most part, they like to stick into their little burrows, but they're fairly friendly and easygoing. There are a few notable specimens that I've encountered that are not and more offensive. I'm actually going to be picking up one from a friend that is such, but overall, they're a good starter tarantula in my opinion that I've found. Very beautiful to go with, and that's one of their main appeals.
All right, so I know a lot of people out there have a fear of tarantulas. I don't think movies really help with that. They kind of create an arachnophobia, and growing up, I think a lot of people hear like, ew, spiders are gross, tarantulas are gross. When you tell me that this one is handleable and friendly and the other one is not, what is it about this one that makes you say, hey, this is a friendly one, this is one that I think can be a good pet for somebody?
How it reacts to when I interact with it. So if I'm going to interact with a tarantula, the first thing I'm going to do is gauge its reaction by taking something like a tongs or maybe a Sharpie marker or a paintbrush and just brushing the back legs very gently, seeing how it reacts. Now she's kind of like, what the heck, just because I had to take her out of her hobble, but she's not having an adverse reaction to that. She's not raising up her abdomen, showing me signs that she might be kicking hairs. She's not going up to a threat posture like this one did, where they rear up their body, present out their fangs, separate them out a bit, and also show up their legs to make themselves look larger than life. And overall, she's not running from me. She's just kind of active and doing her thing. In fact, I think she wants back in her little cork tube.
It looked like she was trying to dig a little bit.
Yeah, and that's not too uncommon. They do dig a bit, and that's really where they make their homes.
Now, what would be the difference between, say, this one and if we were in Costa Rica and found a wild one? Would you try to pick up a wild one?
Personally, yes, but that's just me. For a lot of times, tarantulas in the wild have a different disposition than they do in captivity, and that's just through a number of reasons and how they're handled and their interactions as a whole. There are some notable species like the Grammostola pulchra or the Brazilian black that you could literally just go to the wild, pick one up, and have no issue. Or the Infonopelma chalcodes, which is the Arizona blonde, which we actually have a large 21-year-old female down here, as well as some spiderlings up here. And I think we actually did get one in, if I'm not, yeah. We did actually get a different one in as well. That's right here. That's another species that you can literally just go pick one up. And a lot of the times they're unfortunately wild caught, which I do take issue with, just because you're taking something out of the wild that shouldn't be taken out of the wild. It can affect the how many are in there. It could affect the natural ecosystem and any number of variables. So if you get an animal, do your best to make sure that it is captive bred and not wild caught, because it could contain parasites that you don't want to deal with. It could be hazardous to the environment, and overall poaching of animals is nothing you want to be associated with or nothing you want to have happen.
So Gage brings up a really good point there, which is one that I was going to end the video on, is we try to be what we call a sustainable pet store. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we look at getting things from breeders who are breeding in captivity, which inevitably an animal once came from the wild and is now in captivity. So we're trying to look for animals that have been long-term, multiple generations in captivity and not wild caught. We looked at from everything from our geckos to our turtles and tortoises to our tarantulas, pretty much every animal across the board, because what we want to try to do is create a sustainable wild population and a sustainable pet population. And those two things can coincide as long as we all work together with local governments and international national governments in order to make sure that not too many animals are being pulled from the wild, but also that we're doing something in order to make sure that the wild population is sustainable, while at the same time we have a captive population for those of us who enjoy keeping multiple animals. So on that note, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate Gage for giving us all kinds of knowledge, and yeah, we'll see you guys later.